Hi, it's Tony again, and we're back on the bench. And this evening we got another conventional classic with the Penn 180 Baymaster conventional reel, and this is a reel that's been around for quite a while. Penn introduced this reel in the early 1940s, and the run of this model basically ran up into the late 80s, more or less, and it's a light tackle reel. In the earlier generations of this reel, it wasn't part of a series. It was just known as the light tackle reel that Penn offered, and then down the road it acquired the name Baymaster, and so that's just a little bit of the history behind it. But it's a solid little reel. This particular one obviously is quite clean already, but it does have the freshwater stand mount attached to it, in opposed to the saltwater one. So that's something that's a little bit more rare sometimes. Plastic spool on this. They did come with originally with Bakelite spools in the early days, and then eventually they moved over to metal spools at a certain point. So, but we're going to be doing our standard service and take apart cleaning on this. Even though it is relatively clean, we're definitely going to be checking the lube and all that. And just to note, I recently did a service on a Monofil number 27, and if you put these two side by side, they are very, very close, these two reels. They have the same gear set, 3-to-1 gear ratio, same drag stack, bearings, you name it. It's all very much so there. So that's just one little thing to note. Obviously the handles are different, but very, very close in terms of functionality and size and whatnot. So we're going to get into it here, and this is a 3/8 wrench. Take this handle nut off with and start taking these pieces apart, having a look. Very clean, no rust, no corrosion. Gotta love that. Makes things really easy to work on. But these light tackle reels are great little reels for a lot of different kinds of fishing, for that matter. Whether you're on a boat, pier, dock, bank. Very, very versatile. So note that the two screws down here at the bottom are shorter screws, or they should be shorter screws anyway, than the frame post ones, and it's important to note that you don't want to put a longer screw down there and have it stick out and your line gets tangled on it. So it's just one little thing to note. I am noticing that all this is clean, but it's also very dry, for that matter, so we're definitely going to be doing some lube work here tonight with this one. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of conventionals lately, all these classic conventional reels made by Penn. They're a lot of fun to work on, especially if they're clean like this one. So yeah, this is great, very clean, not terribly dry on the inside, but a little dirty grease in there, so we'll be working on that. But we're going to pull our spool off here and just have a look in here. This is, once again, is all quite clean. We're just going to take a Q-tip here to this bearing here and just have a look and see. Very, very minimal, so that's good. So we're just going to clean up in here the best that we can. And while we're here, we will apply some of our blue grease to that bearing in here. And also to our click tongue right here. Any of these moving metal pieces should get some attention with some lubricant. So And I'm just going to take a little microfiber towel here to this piece right here, but all in all, this is exceptionally good. No real need to get out any polishes or anything like that of that nature. I don't think it's in exceptional condition. So while we're here, we'll just apply our blue grease to our spool. Just get that out of our way completely. Roll that on there. Put that back into place like so. And we'll put that aside. And now we'll have a look at our innards in here and see what's going on. And I mean, already by turning this, we got a good strong dog spring in there. So that's a wonderful thing. We'll have a look at the drag stack and see what kind of shape that's in. I don't know exactly the vintage of this reel. It could be from the 70s or 60s perhaps, but it's kind of hard to say. There's no serial numbers on these or anything, so sometimes you have to work off of what you see on the side plates. Sometimes there's little clues on the inside, depending on the drag stack washers, things of that sort. But we'll have a look and we'll see what we can find out. Okay. So yeah, a very typical system here. This is the 155 bridge set, which is common to all the Monofil series, the 25s, 26, 27s, and also the Beachmaster 155, of course. So that's just one little thing to note. But our dog just fell out. This is all very, very clean stuff that we got going on in here. We'll just pull the yoke out. I think all this other stuff is so clean, there's just no need to do anything, but it is dry. Note that this is very dry, and it's probably only seen its original lube from when it was new, I'm guessing, probably, more than likely, or somebody just cleaned it up very, very well and never used it, which is also possible. As you can see, there's some dirty grease down in there, but it's great though. This is not too bad. So this makes it real easy to service and work on, which is not always the case. Okay, so while we're here, we'll do our blue grease on our bearing. Just hit that up a little bit. We'll also hit up our eccentric lever here. We're going to have a look at all of our parts and pieces here. We're just going to clean off the dog here real quick. It's in great shape. Take care of our yoke. The yoke actually has some baked grease on there, so that's kind of an indicator that this has been sitting a while. So one thing that I can do here in that situation is just take some steel wool to that piece. And this is fine steel wool, like the finest that you can get in the hardware stores and whatnot. But you can see that cleaned off that stuff real nicely. So, and we'll just have a look at our pinion gear. I mean, it's dirty. It's not bad though. What we'll probably do here is we'll probably just hit this with a little bit of WD-40. Let that work its way in there. Take a little wire brush to this and just kind of clean off all those old contaminants, because you really don't want those in there. This reel is probably going to wind up being a collector's piece someday for somebody. It's something that I got in a box of reels some years back, I believe, and just never used it, never had a need for it, and it's been sitting. Okay, so we'll wash that down with a little bit more WD-40, just loosen it up in there. But I think overall it's not that bad. Clean it off here, see what it looks like. There's still some residual grease in there, so sometimes I'll take a screwdriver, a flat-bladed screwdriver, and I'll just try to work that out the best that I can. Because you really want these teeth to be clean as possible. You see some of that old stuff coming out of there. Okay, once more with the WD, and then we'll also take our Q-tip. We'll just kind of work that in there the best that we can, get anything out of there that doesn't belong. Okay. So what I'll do right here, right now, is just hit up the pinion yoke with some blue grease, put our pinion gear back in, and we're just going to put that right here for the time being. Now we'll take out our drag stack and we'll have a look at this bridge, and this is turning really, really well, but we will take this sleeve off just so that we can see the shaft and see if it does need lubricating, which regardless, we'll clean it off and we'll put some in. But just by turning it, it's very, very free. But there is a pin here that you need to punch out, so I'm going to do that off camera here in a vise. I usually find the little hole punch will do the trick with that. A couple little taps. If you can just get it to stick out enough, you should be able to pull it out with a pair of needle nose. Like that. So real simple. Have a look here. So this is dry but clean. Take the steel wool to it. Take our Q-tip and clean up in here anything that we can. I'm surprised that that spun as freely as it did. I guess it's just really, really clean, but it is dry as a bone actually. So we'll take our blue grease to the shaft. I've also used oil here as well, real oil. I've had success with both. I'm going to stick with the blue grease on this one. Let that work its way in there. Okay, and we'll put our pin back into place. Sometimes they go in real easily when you put them back in, but they still usually need a little tap back in. So a little tap, nice and flush, clean. All right, now we'll have a look at our drag stack. So we got our spring washer, we got a metal washer. Yeah, these washers are very old. These are actually old school leather washers in here. Clean, but old. Show you the next one here. So we've got a keyed washer, another old leather washer, metal washer, and another old leather washer. Yeah, these old leather washers are really ready to kind of fall apart, I'd say. I mean, they're intact, but and just looking on the inside here, everything looks fine, but we're just going to clean it up. And then also note that there is a fiber washer underneath here as well that you need to clean up. These are usually in relatively good shape and they don't always have to be replaced. Sometimes they do. Okay, What we're going to do here is we're just going to hit this with some WD-40 in here, let that work its way in, and clean that up while we're here. Take our wire brush, get any of those old contaminants out of there that don't belong. Okay. So as you can see, not very difficult to work on, these reels, these models anyway, of a lot of these older pens. This is a pretty typical setup for a lot of the old vintage pens here, so there shouldn't be a lot of differences from one to the next usually, if they're of this vintage and generation. So I am still seeing some old grease kind of caught up in here. Let's see what we can do to work it out. I really like to keep these teeth as clean as possible. Keep them free of debris and contaminants and stuff. And see, there's just stuff in there that it's hard to get out sometimes, so we'll hit it with the WD once more. Wash it off and we'll call it a day. Want to make sure we clean off all that WD on the inside here though. We don't want that getting into our drag stack. Okay. So one more time, we're just going to do a quick inspection here of these leather washers, and again, they're not really bad. And being that this is a reel that I'm probably not going to sell it, and I'm probably not going to use it too much, it's probably just going to turn into more of a show piece for me next to like some of these monofils that I recently worked on and stuff like that. So I'll probably put these leather drags back in. If I was servicing this reel for somebody else, they would get fresh drag washers in there, the Carbon Tex, but being that this one isn't going to go anywhere, I'm just going to put the old ones back in. Now, if these were cracked or ripped or anything like that, I would change them out irregardless, but they're not. They're in good shape, so we'll put our metal back in. Next, leather, our keyed washer. Leather washer. We're not going to put any Cal's universal grease on these, being that they are leather. And put our spring washer back on. Sink this back over our bridge sleeve, like so. Okay. And we will pack our main gear with some blue grease. Not too much, but just enough to do the job. Just paint it ever so lightly. There we go. Okay, so now we're ready for reassembly. So we'll put our Pinion Gear up, and we'll hit that with a little bit of blue grease as well before we sink it in. It'll pick up some from the main gear as well, but we'll hit it up just ever so lightly. And we just need to slide this pinion yoke back into position. Sometimes you want to actually take out the eccentric lever, which I am going to do here, and you can see a spring just popped out. But we'll sink this down into place. Take our eccentric jack, Put that over the top, like so. Hold that in place. And now we can take our bridge set, main gear, slide that into position, and then you can roll your bridge around clockwise while pushing down. And then the trickiest part is getting your dog back into position, which we will put one of our longer screws in. We're going to do a little bead of oil here and on these points here. Take this screw, fully threaded screw on the bottom, and then we'll put our dog spring back in. This was a good strong dog spring, so I don't think there's any need to replace it. And it should look something like that. And then roll your bridge back around to line up with your screw. And then once you hear that little click, the pinion gear snapping out, that's usually a pretty good thing. Take your screwdriver and roll that screw back into position. Grab some thread there. Okay, and returning again, everything's moving real freely there, so that's great. We'll do the same with these other screws and get them all back into place. I don't like to snug all these up all at once. I like to just thread them in there and then get them all kind of lined up, and then start snugging them up like so. Don't torque them. You don't want to get hairline cracks and stuff like that in here. It'll just create a bunch of havoc for you. There are times when I would replace the bearings, but the bearings on this look so clean that I don't think there's any need for it, so we're not going to worry about that at all. Just clean off the top of this one though just a little bit. It's got some old tarnished oil on it, I think. Okay, so now we're ready to do the rest of the reassembly. We're going to do a couple of beads of oil here though at these points, of course, because this reel is as dry as a bone. And while we're here, we're just going to hit up a little bit more blue grease in a couple of spots right here, just over the pinion gear right here, and then also in this area here, because you want this eccentric system to work fluently and easily. Like so. Just get that in there so that snaps real nice, as it should. Okay. Take a little towel here to our ring and just shine up this ring a little bit here before we assemble. Very pretty reel though. Great shape, good condition. Somebody's taken good care of it for a long time before it came my way, so that's good to have. Okay, and we're just going to put our frame post screws back into position. Don't forget you need the two shorter screws down at the bottom, like so. And we'll start putting those back in. But I would say that this reel would be perfect for any youngster that's learning to do some saltwater fishing, perhaps, or anyone that's just wanting to fish with light tackle, for that matter. I actually prefer to fish with light tackle for the most part for, I'd say, the majority of the fishing that I do these days. It's great sport and makes it fun. So I like to alternate kind of back and forth with these. I don't like to just kind of go all around in a circle, because that's not it's not going to create a balanced tightening, so to speak. You really want balanced tightening when you're putting on these plates. And again, don't torque them down too much, because you don't want to develop cracks and things like that. That's very common with these old Bakelite plates and stuff like that. So you want to just be mindful of that. Snug those up, double check these here. Okay. So that all looks good there. We'll put our sleeve back in and do a little bead of oil on the thread there. Snug that down a little bit. Nice pretty green handle, kind of lime green on this one. I've seen them come in other colors for this model. I'll also do a little bead of oil inside here for our handle nut. And then that way, the next time this reel ever comes apart, if it ever comes apart, it'll be lubed up at least and in good shape. But like I said, for me right now anyway, it's mostly just going to be a showpiece, because it's so shiny and in such great shape. And these days I don't use the conventionals as much as I once did, so I like to work on them and kind of showcase them more or less. Okay, so we'll try it out, and it all looks very, very good. We'll test the drags out and see how that is. Surprisingly, they're very, very smooth actually. So that's a good thing, considering that they have those old leather drags in there. We'll try the clicker out. Nice strong click on that. We'll try our free spool. It's hard to see in the camera, but that free spool is definitely working. So there you have it. That's the Penn Model 180 Baymaster, all cleaned up and ready to go. So this is Tony with Back on the Bench. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe. And we'll see you next time.